Okay, so now we're going to move on to the multiplication word problems. Same concept with the style of problem. I will work the first one, and then you can have the second and third one to work on your own. You're also more than welcome to brainstorm other numbers and stories for them. These are just some samples that I thought of. So same thing with multiplication, they're required to show their work when they solve the problem and write the multiplication equation. They do not, in multiplication, have to write the division equation, just the multiplication one. If they want to write the division equation, that's fine, but that's one of the main differences between multiplication and division. Division, they have to write two equations. Multiplication, they can just write the multiplication equation. So let's go ahead and start. Miss King is eating lunch in her classroom with 3 students. She gives each student 8 pieces of candy. How many pieces will each child get if they all receive the same amount of candy? So, same thing with division. I give them kind of like an equation template that's hanging in the room. So, and in my room it looks like this. It says number of groups multiplied by the number in each group gives you the total. So if they're struggling with trying to figure out where to start, I always ask them, like, okay, what do you think, how many groups do we have? What is representing the groups? And in this case, the students are representing the number of groups because there's 3 students that are receiving candy. And then ask them, okay, do we know how many is in each group? In this case, how many pieces am I giving each student? So that's number in each group. And then we know that we have to find the total. So how many pieces does she have? So that kind of helps them realize that it's multiplication and not division, because in like a real life setting, it's not just going to say like, this is a multiplication problem. So anyways, so in this case, we would have the number of groups, which is 3 students, multiplied by the number in each group, which is 8, to give us our answer of how much candy. So 3 groups of 8 equals something. I also like to use that verbiage. So to work this out, if we have 3 groups of 8 equals something, that's going to be our equation. I have to see this in their work, whether that's before or after they work it out, it doesn't matter. So that if I know that I have 3 groups or 3 students, I can draw out student number 1, student number 2, student number 3, and then I have to give them each 8 pieces. So if they would like to draw all 8 pieces, that's fine. But if they also just want to do 8, 8, 8, because we know that's how many each student gets, they can do that. So then we know that 8 plus 8 equals 16. And then 16 plus 8 equals 24. So they can use the strategy of repeated addition. So this is basically what I showed. 8 plus 8 plus 8 equals something. They also could just automatically know that 8 groups of 2 equals 16. So they know that they need one more group. And then so 16 plus 8 equals 24. Again, if they need to draw out all of the pieces of candy in each group, that's fine. So I'm meaning like literally draw out all 8 and then count them up. But I want them to get to where they can represent their thinking with numbers instead of pictures. So if they're struggling with the numbers, just let them do the pictures. And then again, you have up here on this first page 2 more practice problems that you can give them and they can solve and write the equation. Another type of multiplication problem, this one, so again, that one was equal sharing, just like the division. This one is an array. So Miss Quillen is helping set out chairs for an assembly. She sets out, we'll work this one first, 10 rows of chairs, and each row has 6 chairs. How many chairs are there all together? So all together is a keyword. So then same thing. They could draw out the 10 rows of chairs, so showing like row number 1, row number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then they could show me that there's 6 chairs in each row, and so on and so forth, and then they could count them. That might take a while, But again, if that's where they need to start, that is totally okay for them to show a model. However, what we want them to get to is like understanding that they can just show that with numbers. So group number 1 has 6, 6, 6. So again, they can do 10 groups of 6 and then add all of them together. Or they could say, okay, if they don't automatically know 10 times 6, then they could split the 10 into, they know that 5 and 5 make 10. So then they could do 6 times 5. That could be a little bit easier. So then they could skip count by 5s to 6. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we know we have 6 groups. That could equal 30. And then they could do the same thing. 6 groups of 5 equals 30. And then 30 plus 30 equals 60. I know that kind of sounds like a silly example because 10 times 6 they're probably going to know right off the top of their head. But if they don't, this could be a good strategy to use. So same thing with these other two. They can practice with these, and it kind of makes a little bit more sense for them to what we call decompose one of the numbers. So like if one of our number sets was like 6 groups of 9, then they could split the 6 or the 9, either one, so we can know 3 and 3. So then 3 times 9 equals 27. 3 times 9 equals 27. And then they could do 27 plus 27 to get their answer. So, which equals 54. So that is one way they could do it, but they can practice with this one and this one. They, again, can draw it, or they can represent through numbers however they need to. There's no one right way. Last thing that I'm going to mention with multiplication and division overall, especially with the division equations. I'm going to get back up here. Oftentimes, students will just look at the numbers and then assume that they're supposed to multiply or divide. So I like to ask them, if I bought 36 erasers, going back to the first problem from the first video, and there was 4 students, sometimes they'll try and do like 36 times 4. So then I'll remind them, okay, Miss King only bought 36. So if we do 36 groups of 4, is that going to give us more than 36 erasers? And most of the time they'll say yes. So then I'll explain that that is an unreasonable answer if it says I am passing them out fairly between 4 students. Then hopefully they'll realize that they need to divide the erasers instead of creating 36 groups of 4. So same thing with multiplication, just using the verbiage of, is that going to be a reasonable answer? Again, let me know if you have any questions or if you would like more practice problems. Feel free to pause the video and work out any of those that I didn't work out with you as practice for your children. Thanks so much.